Hello, my name is Susan Brower and I am Minnesota's State Demographer. Believe it or not, it's time to start preparing for the 2020 census. The presentation that you're about to see is about the Census Bureau's Local Update of Census Address program, or the Luca program. The Luca program provides state, local, and tribal governments the opportunity to review the Census Bureau's address lists and its formal boundaries. Luca is the only opportunity that counties, cities, townships, and tribal areas will have to make sure that all of their households are accounted for. Because the census is mailed to addresses and not individual people, the results will only be accurate if we have a complete list of every household in your jurisdiction. And if some houses are missed, say some houses that were built after the last census, that could have big consequences for your local area. And you'll hear about that in a moment. In the slides that follow, I'm going to explain just exactly what you need to do to participate in the Luca program and ensure that we have a full count of all of your residents in 2020. We've adapted this presentation a bit from the Census Bureau's presentation to better reflect how local units of government work here in Minnesota. During this presentation, we will cover Luca background, who needs to participate, new aspects of 2020 Luca, confidentiality and security, as well as numerous preparation topics, including the 2020 Luca schedule, early tools available for your use, product preference choices for both address lists, maps, and your next steps. The purpose of the 2020 census is to conduct a full count of population and housing and to disseminate the results to the President, the states, and the American people. The United States Constitution mandates an actual count of every person residing in the United States every 10 years. The primary use of the decennial census is apportioning representation among states as mandated by Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, but additional data uses include drawing congressional and state legislative districts, school districts, and voting precincts by tribal, state, and local governments, enforcing voting rights and civil rights legislation by the Department of Justice, distributing more than $4 billion in federal funding each year to tribal, state, and local governments. Missing a housing unit and the people who live there may result in a missed opportunity for governments and their residents to benefit, which perpetuates all the way until the next decennial census. Lastly, census data plays a role in informing the decisions of governments, businesses, and nonprofits regarding numerous topics such as community and regional development, education, agriculture, energy, and environmental programs, as well as other community improvements and enhancements. Here in Minnesota, we calculate that for every person missed in the 2020 census, $15,000 per decade will not be returned to Minnesota taxpayers in the form of federal aid. That's money that will be collected from Minnesota taxpayers that will never come home. Our state is already near the bottom in terms of getting back our federal tax dollars. Your efforts to make sure every single person is counted will ensure that our citizens get back their fair share for our roads, schools, public health, and veteran services. This graphic illustrates the 2020 census process and why building a strong geographic foundation is so important. Starting at the bottom of the slide, the Census Bureau must establish where to count by identifying all the addresses where people could live. The census address list contains the residential addresses that tell the Census Bureau where they should count. Moving up from the bottom left to the top left, the Census Bureau must motivate people to respond by conducting a nationwide communication and partnership campaign. This campaign uses the census address list to send materials that invite and encourage households to respond. Moving across the top corner of the graphic, the Census Bureau must count the population by collecting data from all households, including group quarters, and unique living arrangements. The Census Bureau uses the address list and maps to send enumerators to collect interview data from households that don't respond to the initial mailing of the census form. Finally, moving down from counting the population, the Census Bureau must release the census results. For a little background, the Census Address List Improvement Act of 1994, which authorized the Census Bureau to share its address lists with governments who sign a confidentiality agreement. First implemented in support of the 2000 census, Luca was later refined to support the 2010 census. So Luca provides a voluntary, once-in-a-decade opportunity to tribal, state, and local governments to review and comment on the Census Bureau's residential address list for their jurisdiction prior to the decennial census. The Census Bureau's Luca participants are comprised of active, functioning legal governments, including federally recognized tribes with a reservation and/or off-reservation trust lands, states, counties, and municipalities, incorporated places, and townships. If a government lacks the resources to participate in the Luca, they can arrange for a higher level of government, such as the county or the state, to conduct their Luca review. A government can also designate another agency, such as a planning or development agency, to do the Luca review for them. The 2020 Luca operation offers streamlined participation through a full address list review, provides the digital list in a convenient standard software format, and includes ungeocoded addresses for state and county participants. Also new for 2020 is the requirement for multi-unit structure identifiers, or ways to identify each unit in an apartment building or a condominium. This new requirement is important to mention because it may require special attention for participants that don't store individual unit information. The 2020 Luca materials include Census Bureau residential structure coordinates, if they're available, and allows participants to submit their own residential structure coordinates to accompany their Luca submission. Lastly, the 2020 Luca operation also allows participants to supply non-city style addresses, but only if the corresponding map spots are also provided. The Census Bureau cannot accept P.O. Box information. It's very important to mention confidentiality and security as it relates to the 2020 Luca operation. Title 13 of the United States Code authorizes the Census Bureau's work and provides strong protection for the information it collects. The commitment to maintain confidentiality and security is critical in gaining and crucial in retaining the public support of our work. Luca participants must understand that information provided to and from Luca falls under Title 13, which specifically requires the Census Bureau to ensure confidential treatment of census-related information, including individual addresses and structure coordinates, which identify the location of living quarters. Title 13 requires all liaisons, reviewers, and anyone with access to Title 13 materials to abide by the confidentiality and security guidelines, and requires the Census Bureau maintain the confidentiality of all of the information that it collects. Confidentiality and security guidelines were included with the July 2017 Luca invitation package mailed to the highest elected official in each jurisdiction. To participate in Luca, each government must designate a Luca liaison who accepts the responsibility for protecting and safeguarding Title 13 materials. The Luca liaison, Luca reviewers, and anyone with access to Title 13 materials must read, understand, and agree to abide by the confidentiality and security guidelines by signing the Confidentiality Agreement form. It's important to discuss the Luca schedule as a preparation aspect of 2020 Luca. Keeping the schedule in mind prepares you for the upcoming tasks and actions and will allow you to plan your staffing resources for the work that's ahead. In October 2017, the Luca training workshops will begin. December 15th, 2017 is the deadline to register for the Luca, and between February and April 2018, Luca materials will begin to ship to participants that have registered. Participants begin their review and they have 120 calendar days to complete it. Between February and September of 2018, the Census Bureau will process the Luca submissions that it receives back. Between April 2018 and June 2018, the Census Bureau will validate the 2020 Luca addresses. Between August and September 2019, the Census Bureau will deliver Luca feedback to the participants. The appeals process is still under development, but it's tentatively scheduled to begin in October 2019 with a very short review timeframe. And of course, April 1st, 2020 is Census Day. The Census Bureau is excited to offer early tools that will provide you with an opportunity to begin Luca preparation in advance of the registration. Since January of this year, 2017, residential address block counts are available to download on the 2020 Luca website. This is the first time the Census Bureau has provided this type of information in advance of the Luca operation. The Census Bureau provides the address count files and lists with the 2020 Luca materials for reference purposes only. After navigating to the 2020 Luca website, use the How Can I Review the Address Block Counts for My Entity section to search and download the address block count file for your government. The download is in pipe delimited text format but easily converts into Excel. To prepare for Luca, potential participants can compare the Census Bureau's address count data to their local data. They can join the address count data to census block geography using a Geographic Information System, a GIS, and use the results to identify areas to focus their Luca review. Discrepancies between the census and local counts may be the result of incorrect geocoding or missing information from the census address list. The Census Bureau Geocoder tool, also available via the 2020 Luca website, allows users to upload a file of addresses or enter in an individual address to obtain census geography and approximate coordinates based on the address ranges within the Math Tiger database, or the MTDB. The Census Bureau offers support for the Census Geocoder through email to geo.geocoding.services@census.gov. The Census Geocoder record limit is 10,000. So users with more than 10,000 addresses must divide their file into multiple sections with 10,000 records for processing. In lieu of dividing local files into these multiple pieces, the Census Bureau website includes directions for geocoding services that allows governments to submit larger number of addresses for geocoding without splitting into 10,000 record increments, by using the Secure Web Incoming Module, or SWIM. To prepare for Luca registration, it's important to get to know your options, which the Census Bureau calls product preferences. For 2020 Luca, there are 3 product preference choices: Geographic Update Partnership Software, or GUPS, paper format and digital format, resulting in 7 material combinations. Expect a detailed discussion regarding all of the product preferences during the Luca trainings later this fall and winter. Many governments will choose digital format for both their address lists and their maps to leverage their own GIS. Governments with computer expertise but without GIS may prefer to use GUPS or may choose digital address lists and paper maps. Governments without a local address list in digital format and with fewer than 6,000 addresses may prefer all paper products. Choosing a paper address list and digital maps would not allow for full use of GIS capabilities, but the format combination is available. The next steps for participants include preparing now to determine your available resources. The Census Bureau suggests that you begin to answer these questions. Does your entity have an address list or access to an address list, such as E911, assessment records, water or utility records, or building permits? Does the address list source have multi-unit structure identifiers, such as apartment 1, unit A2, etc.? Does it contain both residential and commercial information? And are the two types distinguishable? Does your entity want to or need to designate or collaborate with a higher level government to assist with the review? Begin outreach to those higher level groups now. And here at the State Demographic Center, we're happy to help coordinate that if that's something that would be useful to you. Another step in the preparation is to register with the Luca invitation mailing by December 15, 2017. The next slide identifies the forms necessary to register for 2020 Luca. The Census Bureau anticipates conducting 2020 Luca training workshops from October 2017 to February 2018. Tentative plans focus on online webinars as well as some in-person trainings. The Census Bureau anticipates posting self-training documents and presentations to the Luca website in October of 2017. If you intend to register to participate in 2020 Luca, please plan to attend a training session or self-train to learn more details and strategies for review. Trainings provide instructions regarding the review and update of the 2020 Luca address list and map product. In February 2018, the 2020 Luca materials begin shipping to participants. Once you get them, you have 120 calendar days to conduct your review, update the census address list and maps, and return their submission to the Census Bureau for processing. So the time frame is short and preparation is key to an organized, successful review. Specifically regarding registration, the 4 forms that must be completed. First is the registration form. Second is the product preference form. Third, the confidentiality agreement. Make sure you read the confidentiality and security guidelines prior to completing this form. And finally, the self-assessment checklist. Fill out and return the 4 forms to the Census Bureau. You can send them by U.S. mail, or you can scan the completed forms and email them to geo.2020.luca@census.gov. Please note the information on this slide. These are the resources available from the Census Bureau to communicate your 2020 Luca-related questions. Feel free to pause the video at this point so you can copy down the information. The 2020 Luca website is the best resource to self-serve information. It includes much of the content from this presentation, the link to the address block count files, the link to the census geocoder, and a 2020 Luca sample large format paper map are all available on the website, plus additional information and materials of interest like the Luca flyer and information guide. The frequently asked questions document serves as a nice resource of information as well. The Census Bureau anticipates posting the schedule of Luca trainings to the website, so keep checking back for updates. If you're unable to find information on the Luca website or have specific questions about 2020 Luca, please use the toll-free Geographic Program Support Desk telephone number or
the Geo 2020 Luca email address listed here to contact the Census Bureau. For those of you wanting to learn more, or those of you using social media, please feel free to connect with the Census via these social media websites.
Thanks again for watching. If you have made it this far, you've got what it takes to participate in the Luca program. Make sure that you read the materials, that you fill out the forms and send them in. And this will help make sure that everyone gets counted in 2020.